computer.
Oh, there we go. We get an alert.
Okay. Well, hello. My name is
Hello.
Alan Barclay. I am going to be facilitating a game of Sorcerer and Sword in a world I call Theringia, which is based on the map that's actually in the Sorcerer and Sword supplement. With me today are Rod Anderson and John Hastings.
Hello.
And they've each made a significant progress in creating characters, and we're going to finalize them. Let's see here. I want to share a bit about the graphics that I created for the game. And as I'm just now getting to know Zoom, this may mean a little bit of patience. So here we have this standard map from Sorcerer and Sword, and I figured that I would just use that. As the rules indicate, it suggests that you don't actually define too much about the world outside of the flavor text that I provided in the opening proposal document that I gave you guys. And I think you can see here, I made a close-up shot. This is the city that we're starting the game in, Shadrazar, which is a trading port near the nations of, well, the pastoral land of Washesh and the nation of Amantah with the major port city of Luzam. Let's see. So I got some flavor shots from the internet. Give you a feel. Of course, it's got this Persian Arab feel to it. And just to give you some atmosphere, Shadrazar is a trading port. It's a major port between here we have someone working magic, perhaps. It's a major port in this Middle Sea area, right about there.
Mm.
And you have both established characters that one is, I believe, a immigrant to Shadrazar from Luzam, and the other one is a native. Am they a native, or you don't know?
He certainly has been there a long time. I don't know. He certainly had been there long enough to really establish himself as a presence in the city.
Oh, yes.
So must be. I think we can say he's native. I think that's fine.
I like that picture.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. He was born there, and yeah, that makes sense.
Okay, so and Rod, your character. Why don't you tell us all about your character?
Tell us all about it. Okay. So I made Yalu, son of Yadin, and I'll just read this sentence I wrote. He was the master of music under King Omari's reformist regime in Luzam. He was part of a great flowering of artistic expression in Amantah. This ended when religious traditionalists overthrew Omari to enthrone a child king under their control, and Yalu fled eastward to breathe freer air. And I mean, someone will probably recognize that as basically being, since Amantah is the Egyptian part of the thing, that's basically the, what was the name? Akhenaten, the reign of Akhenaten.
Oh,
and the Tel El Amarna artistic period,
okay.
which was brought to an end. And when he was overthrown and I believe replaced by his son Tutankhamun.
I think you have that right. And you were the master of magic, or master of music, which means that you were highly placed in the court.
Yeah, correct.
Okay. We'll come back to that when we start looking at your people that might be related to you in your various areas, I guess, in your past.
And I do have some ideas there.
Mhm. And before we started the video, we were talking about what your stamina descriptor meant. Say something about that.
Yeah. So I was describing it as sort of like this breathing regimen based on like singing training and maintaining, but it's also got shades into this sort of magical or mystical yogic type practice with some, martial arts thrown in there for exciting pulp adventure purposes.
Of course.
But just kind of leaning into the idea that there's just this sort of blurry line between music and magic, just like in real life.
Ah, yes. No, that makes perfect sense. Okay. Let's see. Oh, yeah. And the other thing that we talked about is you took as your price how did you phrase it?
Impious.
Impious.
That he does not really care about conventional religion and their expressions, or is actively hostile in some cases, especially.
And that might modify your interactions around that subject.
A lot of people potentially.
Yeah. And let's see. Telltale. Tell us about the Telltale.
And then I have the scar on his unusual scar on his chest where a conjoined twin was removed at birth. And I was just looking for a way, because his price is naive, right? Like he didn't study sorcerer, but he's got this some sort of natural attraction to, the mystical. And I just wanted to express this idea that he's got some sort of primal brush with a scarring experience that or a liminal experience, that somehow marks him as.
Oh yeah, it's very classic. I like it.
Yeah.
And then so you chose to have a destiny.
Yeah,
or a fate.
I chose Unchanging Star just because I guess I wanted to see how it goes, and I kind of like those kinds of. It's kind of like Fafford and the Grey Mouser are kind of like the template Unchanging Star characters, or like the character kind of just always. It's almost like being, to me, it feels like almost like being the detective in the detective story, or being, the character who just keeps coming back to the same.
His fate always seems to be similar.
Yeah.
Thought that because to contrast with destined to achieve something, let's just like Conan destined to become king, right. Or what's the other one?
There's Crux of the Conflict is the other
Crux
one.
of the Conflict, which is Elric. Elric is like key to the whole chaos versus order fight.
And I think there's kind of a natural, this is my just interpretation, I think there's kind of a natural link between taking the Zest for Life will descriptor and having an Unchanging Star destiny. Like, again, effort and grit, like he just wants to experience.
Yeah.
And I thought about, because of his background, I thought about making the guy who's like burning for revenge and wants to. I just didn't. I feel like I've done that recently in some other game, and I wanted to just see, like, this guy has a past and he has like these eventful things going on that could be visited in future games, but it's not his big priority.
I think it has a lot of potential to unfold other thoughts about the relationship between Unchanging Star and Zest for Life.
Yeah.
Just your whole approach to magic or to music. I am so fixated on fantasy adventures that I just put that word in there.
I mean, I think it is. I mean, I think it's fantastical.
Yeah. Let's see, is there anything else? Oh yeah, so you decided not to take up a starting demon,
Yeah. And
which is
again, just because I haven't seen that option expressed before, I have certain. I like the idea of trying to be the guy who pacts if he can get away, just does temporary one-time
Mhm.
things.
Yeah, yeah, and you're following in good footsteps. Conan, I don't think ever bound anything, so
Right.
you
That's
know,
kind of like the
but he did manage to banish and otherwise make deals with several strange beings.
right.
So um, it's very appropriate for this whole uh, genre, if we're going to call it that.
Yeah.
And tell us about the kicker.
Okay. So, and my kicker, I think I settled on after some thrashing it out. I settled on what was it? It's the thing where I'm just trying to find the actual sentence that I wrote uh, because it kind of expresses his. Yeah, okay. Yalu has heard a legend that an instrument of the old ones lies buried beneath Shadrazar. Is it Shahrazad or Shadrazar?
Shadrazar.
Shadrazar. And no human has ever heard his music. He must be the first to play it. And so that's sort of his priority is to try to have this experience. And so,
It's
quite
his
curiosity.
driving passion. Okay, it's nice to see a kicker that isn't all about running away from something. So, which is I mean, it's common in fiction and movies,
Yeah.
uh, but not absolutely necessary. Uh, and John, why don't you tell us about Hamze, the bigger king?
Okay, yes. So Hamze is the beggar king, or perhaps no, the ex-beggar king of Shadrazar. He so I'm imagining this as he had been ambitiously, I guess we did decide he was native born, orphan, adopted or became part of the beggars guild here, and worked his way up and became very ambitious in part of his working his way to the top. He did look into and discover some of the secret lore of that's kind of passed down, and managed to find and bind a demon, in this case one of the instruments of the old ones. And I kind of imagine his lore being, in this case, he's an adept, that's his descriptor for lore, and I imagine it as being this kind of secret knowledge of where, secret knowledge of like locations and uh, information about the old ones and where their artifacts live or have been, and different types of wards and other um, rituals to protect from them, and as well as to kind of call their power to them, and in a very sort of I think this is secrets that some of the kind of specific to the Beggars Guild is sort of passed down within their ranks. This is sort of a body of lore that's owned by them, or like protected by them, and maybe they've picked it up from different sources. I think they kind of have pieced it together, over the years. But that's so he does have Gisu, his demon we can talk about too. The other attribute descriptors, his arcane. He also has an arcane regimen. I think it's different, a different flavor from that of Yalu, where I think this arcane regimen again is similar to what I was just talking about with lore. These are kind of I think like potions and tinctures and sort of this like
Any
like
eating bugs
uh
involved?
yeah, I mean, so sort of, yeah, it's just sort of um you know I say like it's his like, it's like his stack if he was like bodybuilding or weightlifting or something. It's like, the all the stuff that like, and the
Right.
beggars, but it's again focused on like what the people in the beggars guild do. Like you've got like the potion that keeps you alert and the potion that keeps you awake and the sort of the little bits of
How about the
you know
potion that keeps you from getting the plague?
yeah exactly, yeah, so it's sort of all these things that the beggars guild
Mhm,
kind of keeps to itself and kind of is
mhm.
passed down. That's the arcane regimen. His will descriptor is aristocrat, and he is, though he's never been, though he's not like, that's he is was born to the lowest class and has never risen above it, except in so far as being in the guild. He carries himself and always thinks of himself as a king or as a
Mhm.
noble. um uh you know and then his price, he does have these chronic bouts of fever, and I think that um so that gets that has been something he can't control, and something that comes on him at any time. I don't know that it's I think it probably is connected with him getting Gisu, with him with him binding his original demon,
Yeah.
that journey or whatever exposed him to some type of ancient plague that even his tinctures can't really fight off. So he's got this kind of ancient plague, that is harbored and he can't completely get rid of.
Oh, fascinating.
Um, a plague of the old ones.
Yeah.
So that's this
Maybe
price.
maybe going to some old one's location. And,
Yeah,
yeah. Mhm,
that's why. Yeah, it was kind of, he brought that back with him as well.
mhm.
Um, and his telltale is he speaks in a very archaic dialect of the common tongue. So even so in a way that like makes it's somewhat pretentious and somewhat like it's like affectation, and um it goes along with his kind of aristocratic attitude, but it's a little bit much for people to take, I think. So that's what
Mhm.
that's
Yeah, it would give you it would give you benefits of sounding like you know what you're talking about, but also people might resent it.
yes, yeah, yeah.
Mhm, mhm,
Gisu's is the object demon, or the demon is with him. It's a Gisu just appears to be a ratty, tattered cloak made of sort of nondescript, crappy material. But once he's, when he's when you're kind of not looking at it, it does appear to change the texture and the color slightly, and never kind of settles into the same thing. um I think this is, as I was making this, I think this is one of those cases where um Hamzy thinks that this is like very much like a like magic item, like a something he has control over and
mhm,
is using as an instrument for his own ends. And so it's, its powers, or the powers granted by it are have been very, I would say, like sort of practical in the way Hamzy's tried to use it, that allows
mhm,
him to he can, while wearing it, he can pass as either an actual aristocrat, and people will see him in the garb of an aristocrat. The cloak sort of fades and it looks like a fancy cloak.
mhm,
But then on the other hand, it can also do the opposite and create the illusion that he's completely a beggar or a peasant, and look like, so that's like a kind of like a stealth thing there.
mhm.
He can also just cloak him, just kind of conceal him in the shadows, and he can sneak around. when he's wearing it, he has enhanced senses of hearing. So he's able to hear gold clinking in someone's purse. So when he knows who the best targets for begging are, and he knows where. He just kind of by he can hear that, and then it also gives him increases his it's able to give him that boost of stamina when he needs it, provides some protection as well. So he thinks Gisu is like I say, useful to him. But we'll see that's probably not true.
Well, we have yet to make a binding roll. We're going to do that
exactly
after I get you guys to detail a few bits and pieces of your character diagram.
And then Gisu has the desire to worship the old ones, and to bring back that worship into a more prominent role in the world. And then his need is to reveal secrets. So he needs Hamzi to secrets are very powerful as long as they're kept as secrets. So he is needing Hamzi to not keep those secrets.
So needs are what feed the demon, right?
Yes, yeah.
This means that you've got to go around occasionally revealing things.
Yes, quite a bit. So which has not made him popular, right? So that's a problem for him. And then his kicker is that I'll read what I wrote. Hemzi, the beggar king of Shadrazar, had ambitions above his station. He romanced Ashara, daughter of one of the great merchant princes, who returned his love. But her brothers severely disapproved. They enlisted the aid of Buzur, Hamzi's discontent lieutenant, who the way Hamzi talked probably was getting on his nerves, and who betrayed Hamzi and led him to an ambush. So he was set upon by Ashar's brothers and left for dead on a pile of plague-ridden corpses, destined to be buried in a mass grave. So
nice.
There we go. So I don't know. Maybe I don't know what he'll do when he wakes up, or obviously when they find out that they didn't really kill him or whatever like that.
So just one other comment is, so you use cover for the cloak's effect of presenting yourself as aristocrat or peasant.
Yes.
Do you see that as including kind of a disguise feature, not just clothing change?
I think it's a disguise feature. Yeah, I think he can kind of it makes people see him differently.
It's interesting. Yeah, it's interesting to consider whether it's all cloak. Well, maybe the aristocrat wouldn't be, but
he can. I think he can kind of like pass as like in the idea that like he can, like if he's commanding, if he's appearing as an aristocrat and he like commands like some like,
right,
if he commands someone, they'll like react to him in that same social status. It gives him that social status. Likewise, if he's trying to slink away from something because he's just a peasant, then like that also people are gonna similarly
that's where I was thinking. If the main use of being looking like a peasant is slinking away, then that might be close enough to cloak that you just.
There might be more things you can do with being a peasant.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's true. You can till the land.
You get to. It would be similar to Streetwise, where you can fit in everything.
Yeah.
Whereas aristocrat would have the element of etiquette and that kind of thing.
Yeah. I'm just concerned for Hamzi's well-being with this.
I'm fine. The worse, the better. I don't play sorcerer to like weasel out of getting into a tough position. That's why I'm here. I want to be in the between the rock and a hard place, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see. I'm dying for that sorcerer feeling of like cursing Alan for putting me in a situation that I made myself.
I will do my best.
So that's like what I'm hoping for. There's nothing
Well,
else like it.
That would be interesting. Do you mind if I keep
Go,
on this a little?
talk.
Yeah, go ahead.
Is
I also see it just
I'm
as
trying to think-
a different, see as a different special effect too. With cover is like he's just, it's more like the stealth, like, you know, like the cloaking device. You know, it's like, oh,
yeah, no, I understand. I'm just wondering. I'm just trying to figure out. Just because when I was running, I guess this is my deal. When I was running, like I ran a thing for Robbie and Greg, and I ran a thing for Alan and Sam and Rashid. Was it Rashid? Yeah.
Yeah, I think that was his name.
But the object demons, I found it hard to figure out sometimes how they would be impactful. So I don't know. I've just
Gisu's very evil and wants, you know, he is very committed to bringing the worship of the old ones back, which I don't think is super, in my opinion, I don't think that lines up with like anyone else's goals in
right.
in the society at the moment. That is not good.
Mhm.
It's just I guess it's just hitting my sort of neurotic worry about making object demons work.
How it influences things.
Yeah.
The rules say something about object demons have means of communicating.
Yeah, I did notice. I mean, in Ron's music game, he just verbalizes whatever they're thinking, regardless of how it's supposed to be. You know what I mean? Regardless of whether we think of it like just.
And like the other thing is like none of you know, I think you think of it as like Hamzy thinks of this as like a magic item, right? Where he thinks like, oh, I'll put it on to do this, but Gizu doesn't have to do anything. Gizu can just like sit there like a weird little like a ratty old cloak and leave him hanging unless he's doing the things that Gisu wants, unless they're like so it isn't, you know, it's not up to me to say like I don't get to flip the switch, right? Is like Alan decides whether Gisu's gonna flip the switch for Hamzy.
Yeah, I think that was a big thing that I always had a problem remembering that was my kind of call to make sometimes with some of these object demons. Anyway, sorry.
I'm having evil thoughts about how to use
you can
the
continue
powers.
on. You can continue onward.
I think that was the end of my sheet. I think that's good. And just so that's where Hamzy's at.
Okay. Now Rod has gone to the Google Docs folder that I made and found the Jamboard I made for his character's sorcerer diagram, and wonder if you can find that. The link is at the top of the Discord channel.
Yes, got it. Okay.
And rather than share screen, I'm just going to separately look at them, and then we'll share screens as it seems useful.
Okay.
So
for the recording.
Yeah. So Rod has already started making progress. How about what are your thoughts?
Well,
John?
so yeah, I can put his what do you say, his
the kicker
lieutenant Boozer is you know, in his past but near the kicker.
Mm-hmm.
We've got Ashara as part of the kicker, and then her family.
That's interesting. You're not using stickies. You're using just text.
Text boxes.
Yeah.
Oh, should I use stickies?
It doesn't matter.
This is...
Well, yeah. I mean, if you want to, Oh, huh.
I
Wait,
didn't realize you could do
Oh, I
that,
got a meeting too.
but that looks perfectly
I didn't know
fine.
this was a thing you could do. All right.
Oh,
Which
Oh, just using just regular text instead of
okay.
using the sticky notes and
Um,
sticky notes.
I need to put more stuff here though.
I'll share the screen that you're currently working on. Where do we find that? There we go.
Hmm.
Let's see. What would you put in the price area?
Yeah.
Don't worry too much about how close the different components are to each other or anything like that.
Okay.
Let's just get them in the quadrants.
That makes sense. In price, so we've got his chronic fever. And so let me think here.
Well, maybe the location that you found it at, or that you got infected.
Yeah, that's a good idea. Yeah. Okay.
And I mean, the sort of like the medicines and the things you use for your arcane regimen are also, I think, relevant.
That makes sense.
Price, right?
People, okay, people.
No,
Okay,
it's,
yep.
this is very, just all of a sudden, Elric, we might say his price was his albinoism, and he had an arcane regimen that
Yeah.
helped him get through that.
Yeah, it seems very Elric. I think the Beggar King idea is kind of Elric-y too, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, very much so. I haven't just been reading Elric. Actually, that's what I've been reading.
Which story have you seen? Have you read?
Oh, I'm
Recently?
just reading one of the most recent one I'm reading. It's it's not the first one, but it's the first one in the Elric collection. It's like his secret origin.
Oh, that one. Okay.
Okay. That's too much or is too big?
Did I just successfully swap over to Rod's screen?
Yeah, that's my screen. That's what I've
Okay.
come up with so far. If
Oh,
you want
nice.
to sort of
That's good.
look over that and see details. First on this.
Oh, and I see you've actually positioned some of these things. Like, for
Yeah, that
example,
was my sort of guess.
yeah, the birth scar would fall in the line between the lore and your past. Sure, that makes sense.
Oh, and I think I should actually just rereading the once over section on page 33 of the book. I should actually name some people like
Uh-huh.
or you can name them if you want, but like let's like this.
I can make them up, but if you want to identify at the very least,
Well, I do
a
have like
role or
I have people and scattered here, and I can give them names or you can name them. I'm not picky about what they're called.
okay.
But I think I also need to put a once again I'm trying to click on your shared screen. Anyway, I should also put somewhere merchant patron. Well, I have patrons in general like these sort of.
No, you'd be connected with this specific house.
But there's a
Shadrazar has a bunch of different competing merchant princes. It's like old Venice.
So this would be mostly past, I guess.
Mhm.
And what else? Decide where they live. So we probably live in the live in the compound of his patron, right? Is that sort of what the social arrangements are in this kind of society?
Yes.
Call it a, would you call it a palace, do you think, or
Mansion.
mansion?
Being going with the Arabian Nights flavor, it would be one of these buildings that has, or large house that has enclosed garden
Right,
with
right.
high walls, you know.
Yeah.
So it presents almost a fortress view, at least from the first floor. There might be balconies on the second or third floor, but
Right. So I think this is kind of, I mean, I guess this is basically where I'm at with the character.
okay.
You can see,
It looks fairly substantial.
and I'm
Ancient tunnels, sure, and the mysterious stranger who sang of the instrument that inspired you.
Yeah.
Your price, a collection of irreverent poetry and art. I like that.
thought that was a touch.
And then your past has got things like, diaspora of fellow courtiers.
Right. And potentially this could touch these guys, which would bring them close together in the center.
Mhm. Well, again, I don't think that we have to worry too much about
Okay.
figuring
Yeah.
out exactly how they follow each other around on the map. Just to have some components that are based on your character's conception and background is the most important thing for me.
Sure.
So I'll swap back to Hamzey's page.
Yeah, I got some more going.
Apprentice beggars, yes, of course.
I realize, and I don't know, like I realize I'm trying to come up with some things that are like more specifically just with lore. I think there's like the way I've thought about this that's kind of overlapping with his past in a lot of ways, but I think though
You described it as
I
secret
think
knowledge of places of the old ones,
yeah.
but it's a body of knowledge held by beggars. Was there like a
And I wonder if like though I want to make it less like it should be a little bit maybe more secret. So some beggars, but not all of them. So I think probably he needs to have like a
contact?
contact, yeah, like the specific old beggar who kind of passed down these secrets.
No, the oral memory, the
Yeah.
verbal memory.
Okay. So we'll say that's old Tarsh who passed down that.
Okay.
And then
What about the location?
yeah.
I mean, the location of your initial initiation, I guess you'd call it.
Oh yeah, okay.
Or where you got Gisu.
I think Gisu he got from that plague-ridden cavern of the old ones, but I think abandoned. Maybe it's all the same.
Are you going to have? I think that Yalu has what ancient quarry tunnels beneath Shadrazar.
Yes, yeah. He has a. Well, I've got the hideout under the city. Although maybe that's now lore.
Well, that could be. I mean, maybe that is a good candidate for being right on the line if that's what you want to do. Again,
Yeah, I find it easier to hit the other quadrants, but the lore, I don't know if what that is a sign of, that my lore is bleeding to the other quadrants or isn't clear enough to me.
well, I mean, I think objects are, again, I think the actual collection of medicine and potions and whatnot can be on the diagram in that it's a thing.
Oh yeah.
Among person.
Right.
And so since we're doing this, I'm curious what page we're on how we're gonna actually use the diagrams, or if as
I'm going to use the diagrams.
Yeah.
For me, it's inspiring people and things that are going to be part of your story, or that you can pull on, as an example. Let's see. Well, the thing that jumps to my mind is, Hamze might decide that he has to go see Old Tarsh, or goes looking for a beggar he knows that's probably still loyal to get assistance from, or something like that.
Right. I was talking about whether you wanted to try to do the procedure that Ron described in that in the big sorcerer diagram conversation
mean
that was going on in early 2021.
You mean moving the components around based on where what they are associated
Yeah, that
with?
and specifically, and using it as a starting, like a session start orientation device.
Well, I tell you what, I was thinking that maybe I was thinking of what I was going to do was take the components that you came up with and then put that into my prep.
Right.
And once I've got prep, maybe I can make the moving around of things. I don't know who's supposed to be doing that.
Well, okay. So, let me just, here's how I currently understand the procedure to be and what it's for and about. And getting this on camera might help in terms of Ron being able to see whether what he's trying to tell people is getting through or not. But so as I understand it, at the start of the session, you use the diagram, the relation of the important things in the diagram to frame the starting scene. With things closer to the center have to be addressed or involved in the starting scene for that character somehow. And then you just set it aside and you just play the game through the scene. It's just an orientation device. But during the game or after the game, the players should also be adding people, places, and things that they interact with in the game to their diagrams, like in a D&D character would write 700 gold pieces and a potion of shrinking or whatever on their character sheet. Instead, in Sorcerer, as I am understanding it, you would write that I would write that I met Astrara's brothers if I meet them. Now I write it on my character sheet or on my diagram, and then the next time, as part of
I hadn't thought it through that far. I was just going to use it as these are components that are going to come into play.
Yeah.
And so maybe we can review Ron's original post about that at some point.
Yeah.
It's all about what becomes useful for play too. I mean, this is not by any means core to actually playing the game.
Sure.
So it's just an aid. So actually, okay, so what I see here is, at least from my standpoint as the game master, John, I think also you, Rod, have put plenty of components in place. And it gives me plenty to work with. And as Ron calls it, he calls it spiking the kicker. I might throw in some other logically connected things.
Sure.
Yeah. So that's pretty much it for making characters. The last thing we got to do is roll the binding roll for Gisu.
Okay.
Yes.
And so the stat that you use to roll for it depends on what your binding ritual is.
So I think it would be, I think it'd probably be lore. I think he has the kind of secrets of the location, the kind of preparation of like how best to, use it. To attune his body to the kind of frequency of this kind of otherworldly artifact. So I think that's, I see it as his lore.
Okay. So a couple of details about making a binding roll. One is, let's see. Do you want to prepare in any way?
I think he would have, yeah. Yeah, I think he would have prepared. He kind of had gone, you got like since it is an object demon, and you're talking about them as these instruments of the old ones. I don't know. It would have been here already. He kind of sought it out, but he would have, I think would have been ready for it, or would have been, trying to, put himself in the best position to kind of
okay.
to conquer it. Little.
Okay. Do you want to use any of your potions or tinctures?
I think you could, for sure. Yeah.
Now, I'm not sure if this specifically applies to bind in the rules per se, but I'm seeing for other elements, like contact, if you take a hit of a drug, you get a 1 dice bonus. and then there's consequences. You later have to roll your will against the number of hits taken or be knocked down.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I think that's
but that only matters if it's very recently that you've done the binding.
yeah. Yeah, I mean, I see it as not I see it as him having had this cloak for a while, or having had Gisu with him for a while to kind of, you know, his partly he gained the control of the Beggars Guild through the use through using through his bargain with the Gisu.
Yeah. So your story goes something like you learned of the location. Did you stumble upon it originally, or did you learn of the location?
No, he learned of it, and he heard, you know, he learned of these places where the, you know, kind of, yeah, learned of these places where the old ones were known to have left their mark, and have the, you know, people who had worshipped them had gathered. Found his way there, kind of snuck in there, made his way through, you know, probably seeing things that would potentially like drive you mad and all that stuff.
Okay.
Found,
Passing
you
the
know,
gauntlet of the old one of the places of the old ones.
Probably, you know, where one of those things where, like, as you get into these places, like, you know, time and space warp geometry is no longer Euclidean, and
how did you come upon the cloak? Was it stored somewhere? Did it have to like be assembled? Did it?
I think he took it off a corpse.
Uh-huh.
It was, you know, a priest or some type of worshiper of one of the old ones, maybe not even a human skeleton.
Strange
you know,
elongated bones.
Yeah, was wearing this cloak, and he found it in like a sarcophagus or so grave robbing here.
Okay. And well, describe to me. I mean, you've already described the trip there, which can be part of the binding ritual.
Yeah.
So, can you give me any more descriptive text on this?
Yeah, I think that I think in the binding is like when he puts, you know, when he dons Gisu for the first time, there's a shift in his own sense of self. Like, it doesn't just create this appearance, but it also starts to reach in and kind of existentially leave him sort of at sea. And that started happening, I think, probably instantly. That kind of sense of who am I, and starting to maybe lose a sense of his identity a little bit. It's a.
Can you make I can't remember what it's called in the game. It's like a declaration of ego. You know, how does this coincide with your personality, and how is this appropriate?
Yeah, it's and it's probably like that feeling of
No, I am
attack.
Hamze. I am Hamze. The what?
Yeah. So Gisu, donning Gisu leads him to have that sort of he's forced to push back with his sense of his own self and his own superiority, as this tries to overwhelm, existentially sort of overwhelm him and, turn him into turn him himself into an instrument of the old ones,
That almost sounds like you're using your will.
Yeah, that does. I think you're right.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
the aristocrat descriptor is very helpful in
Yeah,
thinking of that kind of.
I think that makes sense.
Okay. And oh boy, you have to go against his will, which is fairly
Yeah.
substantial. I'll give you a bonus dice because we worked through such a nice psychological connection there.
Yeah.
So roll away.
My high die is an 8.
Okay. Yeah, my high die is an 8 too. I've got 3 of them.
Yeah. Okay. I only have 1. My next highs are a 7.
Okay. So that means I got 3 victories on you. I have 3 8s. And then
Two.
Did you?
oh, wait a minute.
Two.
Our high one ties, so we set that aside.
Yeah.
Right.
2 victories.
So I got 2 8s, and then the next one is a 6. So that means I have two victories on you. So Gisu has a 2 victory advantage in the binding.
Okay. Sounds fair. Okay. And then humanity loss.
Oh, yes. So it's just a down check. I think you roll humanity versus humanity.
Yeah. I think it's 4 versus. So I've got 4.
Rod, do you want to roll the other 4 dice?
Sure.
Well, okay. My high die is a 9.
Let's do it on a computer.
My high die is a 9 here.
Okay, so I'm rolling four dice.
Yep, 4 dice.
And so I've got a 10.
There you go.
14.
That's a loss.
Yeah,
There we go.
so your humanity goes down.
Down to 3. Okay. Yeah, that happens.
It's kind of scary.
Blessing.
I think one of my characters lost 2 humanity all in one go in Rod's game, and I was going.
Yeah.
Yeah, actually going through the full sorceress procedure is pretty rough.
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll take us back to a quick shot of the map. And so what we need is some theme music to play us out here. I will gladly prepare based on the kickers and the diagram components that you've come up with. And any other thoughts or anything like that before we stop recording?
Okay. I think I'm ready. Ready to go.
I don't think so. I think that's good. Yeah.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Well, I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
Okay.
Or at least we'll stop recording now. We can have a chat afterwards.
Okay, sure thing.
Give me a moment.